Hey guys, Max here, and yesterday was Friday, the last trading day of the week, and we had a pretty interesting day to be honest. Saudi Arabia was attacked by Yemeni rebels with a drone attack that destroyed a fuel depot, sending shocks through the energy market. Equities were very volatile, but they ended up green for the day by the end. So what actually happened in the markets? Well, equities rose slightly on the whole. The S&P 500 was up by about 0.5% by the end of the day, but it was very volatile. It saw 1% gains and 1% losses at some points. The Nasdaq actually fell by 0.1% by the end of the day. Hardly any moments of green were seen in that index, and it saw routes of as much as 1.3% at some points. Now, why were the markets a little bit poor? Well, frankly, who the hell knows? Maybe because of oil shocks from this Saudi Arabia attack, maybe because the Ukraine war isn't stopping as markets have been pricing in recently, maybe because Biden accidentally told US troops that they were going to Ukraine in a moment of absent-mindedness. The reality is, markets are not acting very rationally, there's too much liquidity and capital floating around, and there's nowhere to put it, so investors are scrambling on any piece of news to try and work out what's happening next, leading to volatile markets not really making any sense. Now, currencies as well saw no major move. The pound, the euro, and the yen were all pretty consistent against the dollar. The ruble saw that slight boost a couple of days ago on Russia's demand to be paid in rubles for their gas exports, but that was all from speculators, and as of right now, the ruble is still basically the same as where it was then. Bonds actually saw a ridiculously crazy day. Once again, I know I've been saying that a lot, but seriously, the moves in the bond markets we're seeing right now are insane and just perfectly illustrative of how crazy these markets are. The US 10-year Treasury yield rose another 11 basis points to 2.48%. Once again, the highest it's been for over 3 years. It costs more to service debt right now than at any point in the last 3 years. That is crazy and not good news for markets or our economy. Of course, it isn't just US bonds that are moving, other bond markets are moving in that same direction. The German 10-year yield is sitting at 0.6% and the British 10-year is sitting at 1.7%, both very, very high. Now, oil prices saw a spike on the Saudi news that we'll get into in a moment and explain in full, but WTI crude oil went up to $114 a barrel before settling at around $113, still a very damn high number, don't forget that. Brent crude oil as well rose, it's the standard of oil for Europe, and it's sitting at $117 a barrel, also very high. Gold actually fell a little bit, about 0.5%, and it now sits at $1,960 an ounce, holding higher than I and most others thought it would, but actually, as someone who has been buying gold before the Russian invasion, I can't exactly complain. Now, crypto had a standard day of mostly just sitting steady, but with some slight declines to finish off the week of actually solid performance. Bitcoin and Ethereum are pretty much unchanged from yesterday, still at $44,000 and $3,100 or thereabouts each. Altcoins lost value for the most part, down a few percent each, but some did worse and some did better as always. Now, about 2 months ago, I made a video looking specifically at the conflict in Yemen between Houthi rebels and some other countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and at the time, this video was spurred on by an explosion in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, which reportedly came from a drone and targeted an oil depot in a location very close to the many tourists who holiday there. Now, at the time of this attack, the news actually made very little of it. They said it was quite clear that no tourists were killed, they reported on it for a couple of hours, and then they forgot all about it. But it seemed clear to me that it was an escalation by the Houthi rebels and one that represented a new strategy from them, and that it would only get worse from that point forward. Now, a couple of months went by and nothing really happened, but my idea was sound and actually really simple. These rebels wanted these states and their armed forces out of their country and to end that war, and for a long while they had literally been fighting the armed forces as insurgents often do. But the Houthi rebels recognized that the Arab states are making really strong concerted efforts to try and change their economies and their countries as a whole. It's not exactly news at this point, it's been a multi-decade long process, but the UAE and Dubai and Abu Dhabi in particular have been building up their cities as tourist locations, trying to build an industry around that over the coming decades, as one day it is very clear that their oil wealth will run out and they are very aware of that. They're also trying to attract just other wealth to the country, finance and business with low taxes, and in particular recently, cryptocurrency and the industry that surrounds that, with Binance, the largest crypto exchange in the world, planning on setting up its headquarters in the country after being forced to leave China and Hong Kong. Well, I made a video about this and I posited that this move and that escalation by those rebels made perfect sense. They weren't getting anywhere by fighting a standard insurgency, so they decided instead to target a tourist hub in an attempt to make worldwide headlines, shock Americans or Europeans, and stop them from going to Arab states for their holidays and thus derail the tourist hub plans of their enemies. Money matters, plain and simple, and Houthi rebels have started to attack the money that these states love so much. This weekend then, we saw Formula One head to Jeddah for the second race of the season, something that will bring hundreds of millions of dollars to Saudi Arabia and help the country move past the idea that it's third world and not suited for tourists. That's one of the main reasons that Saudi Arabia and a few other Arab states have bid so hard and paid so much for an F1 race, because it's an opportunity for the country to attract more tourists and build an industry and create wealth around it. So what exactly happened? What did the rebels do? Well, they derailed that plan by attacking an oil storage facility within miles of the F1 track, taking all of the attention away from the race and replacing it with the conflict. Take a quick look at the F1 Reddit, for instance, and you'll see many fans call for the race to be cancelled now and into the future as well to ensure the safety of the staff, the fans and the drivers of F1, and this isn't a ridiculous idea. There was a huge fire, loads of smoke that can be seen on the cameras that are stuck on the F1 cars as they race around the track even. A bunch of drones apparently blew up an oil storage facility which caught fire, and that sparked fears for the global oil market, even if that action alone isn't actually a major factor. Oil prices spiked and investors worried for a moment, but they quickly decided that this news wasn't actually worth anything major, so ignored it. But mark my words, that is a major mistake. This new strategy by the Houthi rebels is working, it's effective, and it's very cheap and easy. They are going to ramp up attacks on tourist areas, making the Arab states feel and look unsafe to the millions of tourists, hurting that growing industry. They're going to target oil production and storage facilities to hurt their incomes at the moment. They will focus these attacks on times when the world's eyes are watching. F1 racing in Jeddah was a perfect time to strike, and we should absolutely expect more strikes just like this when world leaders or other major sporting events go into the area. Now, the real risk here for the world economy is quite minor at the moment, and it's related to oil production, as you might expect. In reality, we aren't going to see less oil exports as a result of this one attack, but we have already seen a spike in prices, and should these attacks continue and even escalate, another limit on the supply of the world's oil production is without a doubt an awful thing for us all. Now, this is all happening as even Bloomberg is calling out the irrationality of markets, claiming that they are ignoring the risk from the Fed's tightening monetary policy, which they are, and claiming that the ridiculous bond markets that we're seeing at the same time are being ignored by markets as well, again, which they are. Bloomberg is actually right for once here. The fundamentals behind this market, our economy, are poor, and yet asset prices are rising on really no news at all. All it will take is one trigger that investors can't quite stomach, and investors will panic and markets will continue their long-term trend of decline that we're going to continue to see. Now, on a slightly off-topic note, I might make a video on the yield curve inverting if people are interested by that. It's a rather complicated topic, but it's been getting more and more attention over recent months as we see it getting closer to happening, and it's very worrying to see. It has far-reaching consequences, so leave a comment down below if that sounds interesting to you. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to bless the YouTube algorithm. If you want more content like this, then check out our Patreon and join our community of investors. You get access to our Discord, loads of exclusive content like insight into my portfolio and buy and sell alerts for all my own investments. There's a link in the description to this video's sponsor, Masterworks.io, which is a great way to diversify your portfolio with non-market correlated assets. It's completely free to sign up, so make sure to check it out and start protecting your portfolio from inflation today. There's also a link in the description to BlockFi, which will give you up to $250 in free Bitcoin when you use it. You can also get 9% interest on stable coins like USDC, which is a far higher rate than you get from any savings account these days. Just make sure not to use Tether. Thank you all for the support. Thanks for watching. Stay stoic. Until next time.